Okay, so dear Tovia, what is your credit card number, expiration date, and security code? I've heard that an unborn soul chooses their whole life before they are born, such as those their parents will be who they will marry their whole life, and they have to agree to it before death. Is this a true belief or not? Okay, it's not exactly correct. The source for, but I know where this comes from. But it's whoever said it misidentified the text. The text is found. So it's in the Talmud. It's tractate Sotah, and it's the first page. And the text says, I have to reverse translate it because going to Yeshiva, it's all Aramaic. So I'll just go. So, 40 days before a baby is born, a voice from heaven, just reversing it from Aramaic to English, a voice from heaven cries out, declares, this person will be rich or poor, and who this person will marry, will marry. A whole series of things about them, about their health, about their life, and so on, and who they will marry. And then the Gemara says a very interesting thing. I mean, the Talmud says, you want a really hard one? The Gemara says, the caution l'zvugin k'kriyas yamsuf. This is the Talmud says. So, that of all the things that God has to do that's really, really difficult, it is as difficult for God to make married couples as it was for him to split the sea. It's as hard for God to produce a married couple as it was for him to part the sea. So the Talmud says. This happens 40 days before a child is born. What problems does this present? That it's as difficult for God to create couples as it was for him to part the sea. How many problems could you come up with by this statement? You should be going, what? What's the problem with that?
Well, if you've never been married, you know.
Yeah, right, there you go.
Really problematic.
All right, but all right, it's Jim Long. That's why I love the man. So one day he's going to be standing by a mikveh, and I'm just going to just push him right in. I'm not kidding. I'm just going to no chayd and just okay. What doesn't make sense about this? It's a whole series of questions that should present to you.
First of all, it's not difficult for Hashem to split the sea.
Right. That means what would be the difficulty? It does not make sense that it is difficult for God to make couples, to arrange the man and woman to get married as to split the sea. Well, it wasn't difficult for God to part the sea. There is nothing that God cannot do. So that would. What other question might you ask? You might ask the question: what's the relationship between the two? Like, what does part of the sea have to do with getting a man and a woman? Now, people could do the wrong thing. For example, I just want to make that clear. People can marry the wrong person because they have acted not based on wisdom, but have acted recklessly. Just as a person is assigned a certain amount of years in their lives, but as the Talmud says, "Hakol b'dei shemayim chutz mitzinim upachim," means everything is from heaven except for catching a cold and getting heat stroke. And what that means is that you can act recklessly, and God has really given you 93 years, but you can walk out in the desert and just die of heat in your 20s because you just did something stupid. You essentially committed suicide. I mean, you can interfere with that. You can walk into a building that looks like it's about to collapse, and it collapses on you. That was not God. That was you. You are a murderer. Okay, so that's very important. So, but why does the Talmud connect the splitting of the sea? How does that relate to making couples. Why is anything different? So what's going on here? So this is the statement we have in the Gemara. Again, it's Tractate Sota, it's Daf Beis Amud Aleph, first page. What does it mean? Why is it difficult? How could anything be difficult? You get the questions here? Okay. Those pose serious questions. So people could, marry the wrong. I mean, a person could just, just be very foolish and make those kinds of decisions that are not. But we all get that part. But what's the connection? So what was unique about the parting of the sea is not that God was able to part the sea. Clearly, that what was very unique was that when the sea parted for the children of Israel to pass through safely on dry ground, and then it would collapse on the Egyptian army, and they perished, and their bodies washed up on the side of the shore where the Jews were, so they can see the soldiers who had perished. The nation of Israel had this very complex series of events that just unfolded before their eyes, an unprecedented event in human history, and they looked at this very complex event. So they've seen the cloud that stood between them and the Egyptians, the water that parted for them. They passed through, collapsed on the Egyptians, and the Egyptians then washed up in the sea. And they were able to assemble all that information. They were able to look at the world, and then they lift up the finger and they said, Zeh Keli v'yanvehu. With one voice, a nation of 3 million people spontaneously said the exact same thing. This is my God, and I will beautify him. So the uniqueness is that they had free will. They had a very complex series of events that had just unfolded, and they were able to observe the world and point and say, this is my God, and I will beautify him. And that's exactly what was very difficult. How could Hashem have produced a single event that 3 million people, Jews no less, would agree on exactly what say the exact same spot? And that's what exactly is the case when God putting couples together. Hashem is taking a man and a woman who are looking at the world, very complicated world with forces from different directions that are pushing in all one side. So we have leaders who we admire and leaders who we don't. We don't know if Israel's leaders will stand up to the enemies who are swearing destruction. We have people who are living in downtown Houston who are hungry, who go to sleep cold and hungry every night. And Hashem is saying, I need to find a man and a woman that are able to observe an event and come to the same conclusion. And that's what you're looking for. When you're looking for who's the man you're going to spend your life with, who's the woman you're going to spend your life with, what Hashem is doing is He's going to find that person who will be able to observe this spectacle, this event, and draw the exact same conclusion. Doesn't mean that you'll agree on which side of the bed, or does the beds have to be made, or does the thing. No, it's about looking at the world and saying, this is what we have, this is my response. And that was difficult for God. Producing two people who can respond the same way to a phenomena as they did in the Exodus. And that's what Koshel Zvun Kriyas Yamsuf, and that's why they connected. It's Zeh Keli V'yanvehu. Can the two of you, I like the bed made this way, or I like the plates here, or I don't think it's important that we dry the plates because they can just, that's not it. Could you look at the world and say, you know what, as a couple, we're going to become one, and we have the same response. And that's what's difficult for the Almighty, to get two people to become one flesh. We're the only creature that was created from one flesh. Women were not created from dust. They came from the rib of a man. It's the only creature that was born, came to this world without a female. And Adam had to discover that he was missing something, and after observing all the creatures, he had to conclude that actually none of them were appropriate for them. And he saw their nature and gave them name accordingly. And he had to cry out to God and said, she isn't here and I'm alone. And then God did not create a woman from the dust. He took her from, and so that who could you become one with? Who could you become one with? And God is in the midst of your relationship. God is the center of the relationship, and the nature of the marriage is that I'm not here to try to feel good or what I can get out of this marriage, but I'm here to try to figure out what can I do to raise you up. That's what you're looking for. You don't want to look for someone who makes you feel good. You want to look for someone who you want to really invest in and raise them up. Imagine a couple with each side is saying, what can I do to make you a better person? You've got a great marriage. And if you have a marriage, will say, well, what can I do? What can I get out of this relationship? Well, one day that person just won't give you what you want, and then you will then hate that person. That person will become the object of all you hate, because you really never loved the person. You loved how they made you feel. So you basically, they were really always chocolate and pizza to you. As long as they made you feel good, you loved them. But they didn't really love them. You loved yourself, and they made you feel good. So therefore, but in fact, once pizza makes you sick and chocolate makes you want to vomit, or then you hate the children. You don't. So that's what's happening. The idea is to bring God into the relationship, and each side is trying to figure out, what can I do to raise up my wife? What can I do to make my husband a better person, a stronger person? If you have that kind of marriage, where you both together are see the world come to the same response and are strengthening each other, you have a marriage made in heaven.